Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time of day you're tuning in, we're glad that you're here. Welcome to the Martell Group Fireside Chat, your monthly dose of real talk at the intersection of sales and marketing. Each month, we sit down with a leading industry expert to explore fresh perspectives, hard-earned insights, and emerging trends, all through the lens of sales and marketing strategy. NeuroMynds is the first holistic ecosystem for neurodivergence, built to give them tools to help shape and transform our society and the world. And at the center of all that is today's guest, Lisa. Now, you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with sales and marketing? Well, this might explain it a little bit. Have a listen.
I think if you hire a neurodivergent person on purpose, that neurodivergent hire could be your next billion-dollar business idea. So I think it is very important to understand how much innovation and progression they bring. I'm not saying that everything is always perfect. We also have a tendency to sometimes be messy in our own ways because we don't think from A to B in a linear way. We think like in a big, in a big kind of a pie chart where we jump from one thing to another.
Yeah.
But that makes neurodivergence so incredibly innovative. So companies can use it as their advantage, and accommodating them in terms of flexibility is important because the majority of neurodivergents, they do not thrive in an on-site setting. Majority, not everyone, but
Sure.
The majority doesn't thrive in offices all the time being distracted by noise, by smells, by lights.
This episode was packed with a ton of insightful information and even an aha moment or two. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's dive right into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Martell Group Fireside Chat. We're so happy that you are back here joining us yet again. We are cracking into a different kind of group of guests that we're going to have on the podcast here coming up. I know we do a lot of sales and marketing related talks with people that are in those industries, but we're going to branch out a little bit today. Stay with me. Don't worry. It's going to be a fun and very, very interesting conversation with our guest today, and you'll just have to listen and stick around for what we're about to get into. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Lisa, the founder of NeuroMynds. Now, what is NeuroMynds? Who is Lisa? What is going on, Chris? We will answer all of those questions in just a moment. But first, Lisa, how are you doing today? I know you're on like the other side of the world right now for me. It's what, 9:30 a.m.? I think it's 4:30 for you. Is that right?
It's 4:30, yes. Thanks for having me. I'm great.
Yeah, good. Well, we're so glad to have you here. And we were talking a little bit beforehand. I know that there's a lot to kind of dig into, about NeuroMynds, about what work you've been doing, what work NeuroMynds does, and what it means for anyone out there, right? Not just sales and marketing, but just for people to keep in mind, right? So I don't want to spoil too much. We'll get into it here in just a second, but to kind of set the foundation, can you give us a little bit of an idea of who you are, what you do, and maybe just like a top level overview of NeuroMynds?
Absolutely. Thanks. So yeah, I'm Lisa. I have been working in the field of people and culture for the past 17 years. And I was building my career through chaos, curiosity, and also created structures where there have been none. So I don't have a uni degree, no bachelor's, no master's, no PhD, but I've worked in complex and international environments. And my hobbies have always been psychology, social anthropology, science. So I always love to like dig into these topics and looking at it from a more holistic perspective. And then 4 years ago, I found out that I'm a neurodivergent with ADHD and autism,
Mm-hmm.
which then was like no surprise anymore to me why I was interested in humans and behaviors, etc.
Kind of connects
So
everything
everything.
together.
Exactly. And yeah, so basically, the first 2 years, I had a journey of grief. I first had to understand everything that happened in my life earlier because there is a lot of interesting findings. And I think the grief part is very important to go
Yeah.
through in order to really understand yourself better and also to deal with situations in a more confident way. going forward. So I've been unpacking this beauty of neurodivergence for the past 4 years. And from a scientific point of view, there have been amazing findings on how we developed as a society, where today we come more and more to a conclusion that it's a natural variation of how the human brain functions, a different variation.
Yeah.
Which means that, neurodivergents are seen as, let's say, the early warning system of humans, of society. So basically, because neurodivergents see and feel and sense so much that basically we can use it to our advantage if we do it right. And obviously, I've been working in people and culture, meaning that I will also support companies on how to accommodate it better and also being more innovative, because this is something that's slipping through our hands at the moment. And so what we do and what we came up with is a holistic ecosystem, because one thing doesn't work without the other.
Sure.
So basically, we have a community with which we offer peer-to-peer support, because no one should feel alone. That's one. We also want to support research and development, because at the moment it is largely done by neurotypical people. Excluding a little bit the neurodivergent
Yeah.
minds and voices, which doesn't really make sense. It's like you have a swim teacher, he's at the shore and you're in the water and you try to learn to swim, but that person is not in the water, so you don't know how to figure it out. So I think it's important to have like neurodivergence being part of the research and development. So this is what we're doing. And also, obviously, advocacy. So there is some countries where you can sign petitions to actually get things going and change laws and regulations, which will be a very important part on the community side. The second one is education. Every neurodivergent I know, including myself, were really struggling to find the right information, because there is still a lot of old school information that is
Sure.
downright harmful. And we just wanted to get the record straight. So we are actually combining science, but also social anthropology and philosophy as well. You cannot just look at one piece, which
Yeah.
makes it more complex, but at the same time, you can only solve complex topics with complex thinking. And the third part that we offer is coaching. So we have onboarded already 11 coaches from 6 different countries in the past 4 weeks since we launched. And basically, we wanted to make help and support accessible at any time. So my experience was, and the experience of a lot of neurodivergents, is that they have to research like a lot for weeks, for months, finding like potential psychotherapists in vertical commas, texting them, landing on wait lists, having 6 to 12 months partially until they walk into the room, having a physical, let's say, commute, and then realizing, oh, there's no vibe, there's no
Yeah.
match. So then they have to start all over again. So on our platform, you just book yourself a 15-minute vibe check. So you get to know the coach. You see if everything is like working out, if you feel comfortable with that person, and then you can actually like get into the coaching itself. So it is a very holistic platform, and we started as well with our marketing efforts
Yeah.
to spread the word. And the traction has been really great for 4 weeks. We
Yeah.
have been really surprised in a positive way. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's who I am and what we do.
There's a lot to unpack there. So first off, thank you for giving kind of like that overview. And there's so many different angles that I want to take and want to learn about and stuff like that. But first, I'm kind of curious. You mentioned that you kind of started digging into this about, I think you said 4 years ago, right? Where you
Right.
started kind of like peeling back the onion layers to say like, okay, this is who I am, and these are the reasons why certain things happen a certain way, or why I think a certain way, or why I need certain things to, I hate to say function, but being able to like solve problems maybe and stuff like that. Is if I'm looking back about 4 years now or so, that takes us right back to about the COVID time period, for a lot of the world. And at least this is my own experience. I don't know how true this is, but I feel like there was a lot of others just kind of discovering that they were maybe a neurodivergent individual, or they had certain tendencies, that they were maybe ADHD or ADD, or it felt like it was very young in its research, and there were a lot of people starting to kind of like really dig into this, whether it was because it was a COVID time period, or excuse me, whether it was because it was a COVID time period or there was something else going on, it felt like there started to be a lot of research around roughly that 4 or 5 years ago time period. Is that also what you found that kind of caused you to dive into this a little bit more, or was it more or less just like a personal journey that you started linking up with a lot of other people? Like, what's the overall landscape of how this is kind of developing?
The funny thing is, I was already assessed as a kid when I was 6 years old, but
Mm-hmm.
then it completely fell off the radar. No
Oh,
one was ever talking about it anymore. I was a kid, so I obviously didn't memorize it. I just didn't give it any importance, and it was gone, like completely gone out of my mind. And then my best friend, this was like 4.5 years ago, she she came home at some point. This was, yes, during COVID. And she said, Lisa, I just got a confirmation from my doctor that I am ADHD. And I'm like, oh,
interesting.
interesting. And in
Yeah.
this moment, it was like a huge wall that was coming down in front of my face. And I was like, yep,
Ha!
I have it as well.
Yep. This is it.
So it was pretty obvious. And then I was lucky that I got a psychiatrist appointment like pretty immediately to do certain checks, etc. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't really like the word diagnosis. I don't really like the pathologizing of
Yeah.
the neurodivergence because I see it as an absolute asset, but we still have the clinical terms, etc. We still have to, unpack that little beast as well. So basically, yeah, the psychiatrist was telling me that it is not only ADHD, but it's also autism, and I was like,
Mm,
okay, it makes sense
yeah.
actually, because I'm very fast, I'm very creative in problem solving. I have always been too fast for everyone else around me, and at the same time, I also realized that my brain in many situations was faster than my body, which sometimes makes neurodivergence look that they're incapable of like communicating in a proper way, but it's
Right.
just because the brain is already done and your
Yeah.
body is just starting. It's
Mm-hmm.
like these are, let's say, the struggles that only appear in environments that don't really understand it, which is the majority.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, I think during COVID, I personally enjoyed a lot the time of winding down because suddenly I realized that I wasn't overwhelmed anymore.
Mm,
I was just relaxed. There haven't been too many people, less of energies that I had around me. And that was a beautiful thing. And I think that a lot of people, a lot of neurodivergents during COVID have been really happy about it.
hmm.
And let's face it, no human on earth is made to be like in airports where you have 5,000 screens that are flickering and different
Right.
colors and the noises and all the smells from like 10 different food corners and whatnot. And then you hear all the time the people announcing someone and
Right.
whatnot. So I honestly, I don't feel that this is natural and this will also not be the future. So I also see that with NeuroMinds, we can actually shape a little bit going forward. The narrative on how to be a human
Yeah.
and to be
Yeah.
okay to be a human.
Mm-hmm.
So not only neurodivergence, also everybody else, if there is people being overwhelmed, you're perfectly fine. You're human. It is normal to be overwhelmed in a capitalistic world that is selling you everything at any time in
Yeah.
every corner. So it's like nothing's wrong with you. This is, I think, the key message that I also want to get out there.
Yeah, yeah, and that
Yeah.
that that was kind of what I was going to ask next. Is is there a key message or a key thing that you guys are trying to accomplish with NeuroMinds? And it sounds like it's more or less trying to communicate people that maybe either know already that they're neurodivergent in some way, or who maybe haven't realized it yet, but have had some of those like aha moments like you, where it's like, wait a minute,
hmm
maybe I should see somebody, or maybe I should have a conversation to kind of help unpack my brain to not be overloaded and stuff like that. So it sounds like you're kind of creating that community. It's helping people realize like maybe how their minds work, or different ways to tackle problems, or reasons why they go about things in a certain way. Is that right?
I mean, misery seeks company, right? So basically, funny enough, once you have like your circle of friends, it is pretty obvious that the majority of them are as well neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started like 2, 3 years ago, posting a lot about it on Instagram, about
Oh,
like the absolute classics. I had so many friends telling me, "Oh, Lisa, I think you have a point here."
yeah.
And then one after the other was approaching me and saying like, "Hey, I'm ADHD too." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, congrats." So I think that this was like kicking off like or keep like starting the ball rolling. I don't know how to say that in
Yeah.
English, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that yeah, I just realized more and more on how capable neurodivergents are, and that is not a bad thing. But
Mhm.
if you are in traditional and risk-averse environments, you're gonna suffer and struggle because everything around you is so slow, and
Mhm.
you're just getting nuts because you have like misunderstandings on a regular basis. And in my career, the most common issue I had was that someone said, "Oh, Lisa, you didn't understand this and this."
Mhm.
And I said, "Hang on. Today, I know that I had 20 data points available to take a strategic
Yeah.
decision, whereas I had peers with a few less data points. But I was the one that was not getting the decision right, which is stemming from the fact that you have more neuronormative people that have a natural filter. So they
Mm.
don't see and feel as much as neurodivergence. The only dysfunction that we have, because we still talk a lot in the medical terms about dysfunction, disability, disadvantage, etc., is that we don't have this filter, meaning that
Mm.
we absolutely see and get everything around us, which makes us perfect for detecting lies, detecting toxic environments, which is an absolute great asset and keeps companies safe as well. And also very innovative because if you look at Bill Gates and Albert Einstein and whatnot, I mean, they are all neurodivergents
Mhm.
and they're not disabled or whatnot, So
Mhm.
it's a fine line on how you identify yourself with disability or not.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think what is important as well is um, there's one question that everyone can ask themselves to maybe have a little bit of a glimpse, which is, have I always felt different in this world? Did I always feel like
Mm.
an alien? And if the answer is yes, then there's very, very high chances that there might be a neurodivergence. And again, if you then go through this phase of like finding out and grief and all the lost potential that you could have had, different career choices and whatnot. This is something that is, I think, very, very natural. But I think with NeuroMinds, we also want to get people, neurodivergence, out of the victimization loop.
Sure.
Because this is something that I still experience a lot in our community that um, especially the ones that are freshly assessed,
Mhm.
that are new to this kind of world, they really struggle and suffer. And we just really want to tell them like, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. You have different skills, different assets, difference. It's just different. So I think this is the key message
Mhm.
they want to get out. And healing our society ultimately, which involves everyone, because
Yeah.
inclusion is also for us important and it needs a balance, right?
Yeah. And it almost makes me think too, as I sit here as like a creative person myself, right? It almost makes me ask some of those questions in the back of my head as somebody who's 34 years old, right? I'm thinking about how I always lean on things that are more creative. I work with videography and photography and I work in a very creative field, half the time. And so that it almost makes me think about not only myself, but the people that I'm also around, right? How are we
Hmm.
solving problems or how are we going about things? Or it just kind of helps. It's things that I probably understood, but hearing it from you and kind of how I'm doing like a self assessment almost makes me kind of have that aha moment, right? Where it's
Hmm.
like, wait a minute, maybe I should take a closer look at this, or maybe shoot, maybe I need to join the community. I don't know yet, but the jury's still out on that one. But I love what you're doing, and I love this idea of creating that community. Whether it's people that are, I think you said freshly. I know you don't like the word diagnosed, but freshly like discovered that they are neurodivergent or that there's something going
Hmm.
on there. I think that's huge. Now, I know that it sounds like this is working with a lot of individuals, right? Like, you working with an individual or just kind of like individual people to help them kind of understand. Are you doing anything on the flip side of that with like companies? Are you working with maybe leaders at organizations or leaders within different community groups or whatever it is to help them understand like you probably have neurodivergent people who are already working for you, or this is what you can offer people who are neurodivergent in your workforce, or this is how you hire for these types of positions. Like, what's that side of the coin look like for you guys?
First of all, neurodivergents are everywhere.
Sure.
In any industry, in any company, they're absolutely everywhere. What I experienced in the last couple of years, especially, is that most companies are struggling with the same old issues. And I'm kind of like tired nowadays a little bit of like seeing that there is no change or
Mm-hmm.
like very little progression, which makes me a little bit sad because especially when we talk about corporates, for example,
Yeah.
they struggle massively. I mean, honestly, most people that I meet, like when I'm going out for drinks or whatever, they're telling me, oh, yeah, I have a 100% contract, but I work like 50, 60%. They're chilling their asses off because they're not committed to the company,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not surprised about because, like, especially big companies, they don't really care about the people. And then you have like different microcultures within the company.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have a shitty boss or whatever. And then basically, people don't really care, which is also leading to the fact that we have a very, very weak economy right now. We could
Yeah.
fix this if management would just like, get at the forefront of the problems and solving them together with someone that is empathetic, but also economically smart enough to actually help them juggle it into the right direction. Because
Mm-hmm.
um, especially when we also think about AI. AI is brilliant. There are still people out there being scared. Okay, I understand it, but I think the being scared part fades the more you know about AI,
Yeah.
right? You
Definitely.
can use it, you can amplify it. But then I see sometimes, especially CEOs and like big corporate execs that are running around like headless chicken. We need AI, we need AI, we need AI. And I'm like, what do you need AI for? So explain first, like, why do you need AI?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do with AI? Do you want to automate something? Makes sense.
Sure.
But what exactly do you want to automate? And how do you want to, make the life easier of the people working in roles that could benefit from AI?
Hmm.
And honestly, um, yeah, I think that most companies, the fish smells at the top, right? They have to get it right on the management level in order to actually, be sustainable, be profitable, be economically sustainable as well. Yeah, and I just don't see a lot of smartness because I still see a lot of like ego petting. I see a lot
Okay.
of control and fear being implemented. So people don't have a chance to speak up, which makes companies less innovative. And then they're all crying that they are not making enough money and that they have to actually let go 15 to 20% of their stuff, or they have to like nearshore or offshore teams, and I'm like, guys, honestly, I mean, I'm a neurodivergent. I have pattern recognition. I see the things, and I am not surprised on the disaster that we have at the moment
Yeah.
on a global scale. I am really not surprised, but it seems that I don't know why there's still so many people being surprised about it.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right. And the AI conversation is very interesting. I was having a discussion with some people the other day. I can't remember if it was on like LinkedIn or Twitter. It was some social platform where I basically said, I'm tired of AI being shoved down everyone's throats, where AI does have some very good capabilities, and I will never contest that. The problem is that it seems like every company is trying to say that they can utilize AI without either understanding fully what it can do for their customers, or they're just like plugging it in there to say, yeah, we have it. Like, yay, look at us. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, my vacuum does not need AI. I've got other things around my house where it's like, yeah, awesome, this has AI. I was trying to get support for a Microsoft account that I'm having issues with, and the only way that I can get support is to go to an AI chatbot, type in my problem, and then get it to give me the answer. But it's not giving me the answer. It's not giving me the correct answer. Everything I've
Of course
tried
not.
doesn't fix it. And it's like, sorry, we can't do anything for you. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Classy.
It's
Classy.
like,
And this, yeah, it's exactly why so many companies are also losing clients. They're
yeah.
losing clients because the clients will be like, no, I actually want to talk to a person
Yeah. Like this is
because
the
it's
first
faster,
time
it's easier. Yeah.
I know, like, my generation gets labeled as like, the texting crew, right? Where it's like, no, I don't want to pick up a phone and talk to somebody. This is actually a case where I want to pick up my phone and talk to someone, but I can't because they're like, I'm not being directed in a direction, and it's because AI is failing me for my problem that I
Hmm.
am having. And it's like, going in that direction of putting AI in front of everything that we do, everything from, trying to figure out account problems down to the Roomba that cleans my house. Like, AI
Yeah.
does not need to be in everything. And I don't know the exact impacts that
100%.
maybe it has on, folks in your industry and kind of what you guys are doing at NeuroMynds, but to me, it's too much. It's way too much. I understand some
100%.
benefits of it, but it's like, I don't need it in everything. It's just
Yeah.
over the top, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I mean, look, I think most companies, they really just have to get their basic shit right because AI changes faster than job titles. I mean, let's
It
face it. And
does.
instead of asking, like, what roles do I need, ask yourself, like, what outcomes do we need to produce, or which tasks are repetitive we can automate, or which tasks require like uniquely human strengths like judgment, empathy, creativity, leadership, or
Yeah.
also like solving a problem for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Breaking that down makes sense, and then basically asking yourself, what exactly do you want to automate, right? And what actually needs a proper human hire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, human skills are critical thinking, decision making, interpersonal communication, problem framing, but also
Yeah.
systems thinking, especially in neurodivergence,
Mm-hmm.
creativity and ideation, whereas AI is just in vertical commas, prompting and workflow design, or yeah, a tool for evaluation and adoption, but also like automation processes or scripting literacy. They can be done a lot, but it will never replace a human. It's a
Yep.
fact.
Yep. And
So
we
yeah,
we say that all the time in the sales world where, yeah, it's great. We can have AI set up a baseline foundation for us that allows us to say, okay, I need a little bit of a working area here. Set this up for me. But nothing, in my opinion, will ever replace like the human touch. Like me being able to have this conversation with you, me being able to craft, a copy or a script or write a story. AI can only do so much of that. But if I want my personality behind something that I'm working on, I need to put in the work to do that.
yes,
AI can
yep,
click a button on a camera all day, but AI doesn't really know about framing. AI doesn't really know about, how to set up a shot a certain way for a certain creative look. Like you can't get that. And so I find it
agree.
always very interesting on how we're seeing a lot of those things interwoven into each other. To your point exactly, right? It's trying to shove it all in people's faces, and then you're kind of wondering why, oh, here we are again, we're laying off
Hmm.
10, 15, 20% of the workforce, or we're losing money because all this stuff that maybe a company used to do really well, or a bunch of people used to do really well, it's not happening anymore, and that's just out the window.
100%. 100%. I mean, this year and last year, what I've seen in terms of like companies firing people, I was like, shoot me, really, fuck my life. I mean, how can you let go of so many people instead of like getting to the root cause and ask yourself why your company is fucked and why you don't have enough revenue coming in,
Right.
which is not only AI, obviously, but it's like the cultures, and also like, sorry to say, but the Trump effect that
Mm-hmm.
is across all over the world, that people should be forced back to the office, etc., etc. I mean, it's not sustainable. People have been making themselves comfortable in home office. They got used to it. They adapted. Family dynamics shifted and changed. So, like the whole, let's say, old school way of doing things in everything
Yeah.
won't prevail. It doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah. So let me ask this then, from your position with, in what in the work you're doing at NeuroMinds, is there an easy way to easy's probably a way oversimplification of it, so forgive me here. Is there a more simple way to fix that, or is there a way to get companies to understand who they're working with or who's working for them so that they can kind of right the ship, in your opinion, kind of get back to I don't know if you want to call it profitability, or if you want to call it or at least like working better for the economy. Like what's the solution here? Where do you think we should steer towards in that regard?
Of course, it's not that simple, but it's also not that complex. I,
Sure.
I have a feeling that a lot of companies, they make things like a lot more complicated than it is. No. First of all, excuse me. What is important is that there is the willingness of management to not only understand the issues
Sure.
and the revenue cuts and everything that is economically going on. First, they need the willingness to really understand and dive to the root cause, why it happens. Macroeconomics, geopolitics, etc., but then translating that into your company. So basically looking at your processes, looking at your hires, looking at the culture. And yes, a lot of like managers say, oh, you cannot measure culture. Yeah, maybe there are certain parts that you cannot directly measure, but you don't have to measure everything. Oh,
Right.
that's one. And I think what is also like very important is to be progressive. You want to have like younger, innovative people working for you, like Gen Z, for example. I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan, by the way. Huge fan. I mean, as a millennial, I'm just like I'm welcoming them. Please be my guest,
Yes. Uh-huh.
because I feel that they have. Of course, every generation has pros and cons, but they really have a very, very good understanding of psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good understanding. So they can relatively sniff out fast, like which company is worth working for and which not. And I have companies that are struggling to have a balance in age in their companies because they're operating with old matrices, like how
Mm.
many hours do you work, the number of people that you have in a team, or the length of projects, or volume of activities. How many calls did you make, how many emails did you send, how many tasks are completed.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. It's from the 80s or 90s. It doesn't really work anymore. So
Yeah.
we have to think about new metrics that are impact focused. And companies that still didn't understand the impact focus, they will fail. They will be like with the face like frontal to the wall, because we have to think about what is the outcome that has been achieved instead of like the worked hours, and how did we create customer value, like measuring different how do you say, different matrices. So basically focusing on speed to insight, for example, or speed to market.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Not everything has to be perfect. Also this narrative, like sometimes in companies, especially in banking where I was working, uh, sometimes they have a feeling everything needs to be perfect. Every
Yes.
point and comma and every. Fuck that. This is not how the world works anymore. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You're gonna fail with that mindset. So just get over it. Not everything has to be perfect, but speed is gonna be the thing.
Yes.
And yes, we have been talking a little bit about being overwhelmed, etc. This world has gotten more complex.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, how do we actually tweak the little how do you call it, like the mechanics when everything is like
Yeah.
you just have to tweak a little bit. So you have to tweak on the progressive parts, and you have to de-tweak a little bit on the old school parts so
Yeah.
it can actually grow into something progressive.
Yeah.
And also, like for me, it would be more important, what is the quality of decisions
Mm.
rather than the quality of I don't know, like a certain paper or email.
Mm-hmm.
I had, no jokes, I had 10 years ago when I was working at Credit Suisse. They're not existing anymore, which I'm also not surprised about. I said already they're gonna fail like 5 6 years ago, and everyone was laughing at me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think 2 years ago they went bust. So basically I had a boss and she told me at some point that she wants to see the emails before they go out to the hiring managers. I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
Just add
you
more
know,
steps to the process.
add more steps, make it more complicated. And I mean, honestly, just because like the word is not 100% accurate or whatever. Oh, sorry. And I
Mhm.
have a very good writing, by the way. And even without ChatGPT, I had a very good writing. However, it was like, for example, when one letter was tweaked or something like that, which I was like, oh my God,
Mhm.
total micromanager. And this micromanaging is costing companies so much money.
Yeah.
So I would try to identify them and sorry, get rid of them.
Mhm.
Micromanagers in this world in 2025, you cannot afford it. You can really not afford it. And
Mhm.
what is also like the value per unit of effort,
Yeah.
right? This is also something we should look at. So there is total different ways of like creating sustainable businesses, but I still see so many companies struggling with that. So
Mhm.
I do work with companies if they want to make a change.
Sure.
If I feel that they still try to ruminate about I'm the best CEO, I'm the best
Yeah.
person,
Mhm.
oh, look at me. No, I know that this collaboration won't work because you don't want sustainability, you want ego petting, and that's two opposite directions.
I
So
agree.
we
I agree.
cannot bring this together if you don't want it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I love how you mentioned kind of like the metrics of how people are measuring success. And I think that there's something really key there, at least in my opinion, what I've experienced. Oftentimes you have to play the long game. And I feel like at least after coming out of COVID, maybe those times, or kind of maybe leading into COVID, during COVID, coming out of it, there's a lot of leaders, there's a lot of people who are wanting like instantaneous results. And they just want like, hey, this is the goal and I want it now. And if you don't get it now, you are failing. And maybe that's where some of that micromanagement comes in. Maybe that's where some of that, like if they are able to make the goals happen, what are you doing to the workforce and their mentality? But what are you also doing to like your ego
Mm.
petting, for that same example and everything like that? And you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but I feel like especially with Gen Z coming into play more heavily, and then kind of understanding how certain companies are being successful, it feels like understanding, just like you said, throwing out what some of those old metrics are from the 80s, 90s, shoot, even the 70s, making sure that, the goals and the metrics that are tracking to achieve those goals actually align with the people who are working at those goals, if that makes sense. So it's not trying to push somebody to be in a computer chair at their desk from 9 to 5. It's saying
No.
this is what we have to achieve. Let's figure out what needs to be done to actually achieve it. And whether that's working 40 hours a week to make it happen, or it's working 15 hours a week to achieve the same result, right? Like there's a lot of this where, and especially with Gen Z, I'm seeing a lot of Gen Z people who are like, I'm going to get the work done, but I'm not going to conform to being busy for the sake of being busy, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna sit in front of here and do this one thing for an entire week,
Yes.
right? Like I'm gonna achieve
Yes.
these results, but like there is a play here. There is a long play that we need to kind of
Yeah.
have, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna achieve this goal. These are some things that are going to happen along the way, but like at least Gen Z, from what I've seen, is very much like, yeah, I'm not going to do it, like my great grandfather did it. I'm going to do it
Yeah.
how I know how to do it best. And this is still the same result that we're trying to achieve here.
I think what we have to understand, also including me as a millennial, is that the new generation knows more,
Yes.
which makes sense
Yeah,
because they
absolutely.
learn from the past generations. So honestly, I think we have a very valid point here saying that Gen Z is just trying to avoid the same kind of shit that has been done for decades
Yep.
because they saw that it doesn't work. And in times of polycrisis, who can be mad at them? Don't get me wrong, there's also Gen Z, new CEOs, startups, startup people, etc., that are just going like with the head through the wall,
Yeah.
which is giving them the perfect moment to fail, to stand up and redo it. But I think success per se is something very subjective, right? Everyone has their own personal definition of success.
Yes.
So the question is about alignment. Is there an alignment with what the company wants to achieve with the person being hired and what the person wants to achieve, you know?
Yep.
And this alignment is going to be the new normal in the
I
future.
agree.
I also don't like the word normal, but you know what I mean. Um,
Yes, 100%.
it's becoming like the thing. It's being alignment, and we have to measure leverage and not just productivity. And to be honest, I have to say what I really hated a lot back in the days, and today I understand why, is that as a neurodivergent, for example, your brain is so fast. Your work is being done so fast.
Hmm.
So if I have a 40-hour work week, and I have had colleagues having 40 hours as well, doing less
Hmm.
in terms of hiring than I did simultaneously. So more fair instead of like exploiting someone would be to say, okay, we have, I don't know, let's say 20 roles a month per person. How you get there is up to you. Some
Yep.
people take longer, some people take less. But having the same salary and the same hours is not really fair because people are differently productive. And I'm
Yep.
not saying this only to the advantage of neurodivergence. Don't get me wrong. I also I also need to make a point here that we have to be fair towards everyone,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
So it's just really important that we don't look at single matrices but the whole picture,
Yeah.
and holistic work will also become more and more important. It will not be important anymore if you are just a rock star in one niche,
Mhm.
but the question is, can you put the dots together to create the big picture so you know where we are going and what we want to achieve, which can
Yeah.
only be done if you have like a variety of different skills playing together,
Yep.
which also makes jobs more interesting.
Now, I want to hit you with a couple rapid fire questions. I know we're kind of coming up on the end of our time here, and there's just so much more I want to unpack. So maybe we dive into a round two after a couple of months here. But just to
Sure.
kind of rapid fire set the stage, if there was kind of like one piece of advice that you would want maybe CEOs or hiring managers or leaders of teams to understand about neurodivergent people in just like a short, succinct way, what would that be? What would you want to kind of tell them or kind of let them know just about maybe the neurodivergent community?
I think if you hire a neurodivergent person on purpose, that neurodivergent hire could be your next billion-dollar business idea. So I think it
Love
is
that.
very important to understand how much innovation and progression they bring. I'm not saying that everything is always perfect. We also have a tendency to sometimes be messy in our own ways because we don't think from A to B in a
Hmm.
linear way. We think like in a big, you know, in a big kind of a pie chart where we jump from one thing to another.
Yeah.
But that makes neurodivergence so incredibly innovative. So companies can use it as their advantage. And accommodating them in terms of flexibility is
Hmm.
important because the majority of neurodivergents, they do not thrive in an on-site setting. Majority, not everyone, but the
Sure.
majority doesn't thrive in offices all the time being distracted by noise, by smells, by
Hmm.
lights.
Now, what would be let's think about myths here, kind of like fallacies and things like that. What are some maybe top line myths that you would want people to understand, or top line myths that are not true at all that you want people to kind of understand maybe about like a neurodivergent community or having people who are neurodivergent working in their workforce?
I think the number one that I still hear in 2025, and I really don't want to hear it anymore, is that people with ADHD cannot focus. It's bullshit. It's downright
Yeah.
bullshit. If an ADHD person is not focusing, it is because the task is not interesting, because interest is
Yeah.
what gets them going. So if something is like really boring AF, there's no chance they're gonna
Hmm.
excel at this task. So don't try to point at the thing that doesn't go well in someone. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a neurodivergent or not, but
Yeah.
don't point at, oh, you need to improve this, you need to improve this. No, skip that. Focus on what is good, what is cool, what is the person really great at. And honestly, ADHDers, they don't have a lack of focus. They have either a lack of interest or they focus too much,
Yep.
too many things at the same time.
Yep.
So I think this is the biggest misconception, the biggest myth that just comes like at the top of my head.
As you were saying that, I was thinking of projects that maybe I couldn't focus on, and maybe thinking, yeah, that wasn't exactly interesting to me. Now, was it? So I might need to
Yeah.
go and visit a doctor maybe sometime soon. Two more questions for you, Lisa, just really quick. Any parting words for anyone who's listening to this podcast, or anyone who's just interested in kind of understanding more about NeuroMynds, things of that nature? Do you have any parting words on, maybe resources that they can go to, or the best way to contact you guys or get involved? What's that kind of look like for you guys?
I think, first of all, not everyone has to have an official diagnosis assessment or whatsoever,
Okay.
because a lot of people, they know already that they are, but they don't go to a doctor because the medical field also has, yeah, a few points that are not really necessary to take on board. So it
Understand.
doesn't matter if you're officially diagnosed or not. If you know, you know. And I think the easiest way to reach us is www.neurominds.com to sign up at the community. No, you're not getting like annoying newsletters or whatever. You just sign up. It takes you like 30 seconds. You are on the platform inside of the community, and you can actively participate in future in surveys to really get the medical or the global healthcare offering right,
Hmm.
having really like the voices of neurodivergence reflected, um, and at the same time really getting the movement going
Yeah.
to heal our society, because we really have a fuck ton of problems, and we can only change them systemically if we all like stick together and join our intelligent forces
Yeah.
in order to bring it forward and to solve the complex issues with complex minds. And otherwise, how people can reach us, we have a contact form. They can also reach us at care@neurominds.com if there's any questions. We just launched like 4 weeks ago, so it's still like pretty new.
Yeah. Love
And
that.
yeah, I would love to have people liking, commenting, sharing, spreading a word, either for themselves or for loved ones. Yeah.
I love that. And we'll make sure, for anybody who's watching or listening, we'll leave everything kind of down in the description below, and in LinkedIn and things of that nature. So we'll make sure that we cut all that out. Now, Lisa, one final question before you go. And we are doing something a little bit newer because I want to start kind of linking everything together that we do. And kind of the question is more so for the next guest that we have on. Now, knowing that we have leaders from the sales world, the marketing world, and also outside, much like yourself, right? People who are just leaders in their industry and what they do, and who are quite honestly fascinating, because this has been a very fascinating discussion. What's kind of a question that you would want to leave for the next guest that we have on here that you might want them to answer? Or what's something that you kind of want to pique the curiosity of the next person that we have on here?
The question that I usually ask people generally
Hmm.
is on what kind of systemic problems they see at the moment that needs to be solved as soon as possible,
I love that question.
to just get a bit of a glimpse of like how the different perspectives are out there, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that this is kicking like the curiosity to think about what is it that we can change
Hmm.
for better, like also collectively, and yeah, I think to really make an impact in this world. Yeah.
That's a fascinating question. Seriously, I love that question. We'll make sure that when we kick off the next podcast, we ask our guest that question, and then start getting more perspectives on how we change the world, we change our jobs, we change everything, right? That's
Cool.
so perfect. But Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I think this was a fascinating conversation. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was so great to have you on here.
Well, thank you, Chris. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Shout out once again to Lisa for spending some time with us on this Fireside chat. If you have a favorite part that you enjoyed, feel free to leave a comment down below and let us know your thoughts on this chat with Lisa. Be sure to like the video, consider hitting that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you can be alerted when future chats go live on our channel. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy hunting.